to our awesome Economic Development Kotahitanga Board. We'll get to you in just a moment to give you an update. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for coming to the table. So I'll open us up with a karakia this morning. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kiuta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hia ki ana te atākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Awesome. So just a reminder to everyone of our soft tikanga that we've had a little bit of a conversation about in previous hui, that on most occasions we'll take our papers as read but invite any comments specifically on changes or additions and the decision being sought, and staff will outline those, and then we'll move straight to questions and kind of have a bit of a discussion. It'll be different though for EDKB we'll give you the space definitely to run through your report, Neil, and and then open up for questions. And a reminder to just keep questions to topics that are relevant and keep debate succinct and focused to avoid repetition. So we'll aim to take a break at 11. Who knows, we might even be done by then. We'll see how we go. So we'll take the council blessing. Item number 2 is read. Item number 3, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Liz Coe, Community Board Member Glenn Olsen, and noting that Bernie Randall is here in Glenn's place. Thanks, Bernie, welcome. And Deputy Mayor Lawrence Kirby, and also Councillor Shelley Warwick. And also acknowledging too that Andre Baker has sent his apologies to the hui as well. Can I have someone to move those apologies? Councillor Cofford, seconded Mayor Holborough. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Item number 4, declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Yeah. Kim.
So I'll just declare an interest. I'm a member of the EDKB, so I'll abstain from any voting on the paper.
Kia ora, thank you. Thanks for noting that. Item number 5, public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. I haven't been made aware of anyone who would like to speak in that section of our hui. So moving on to item number 6, members' business, leave of absence. You can make the Mayor's office aware of any, and Rob, have a good time away. Please do. B, matters of an urgent nature, have not been made aware of any. And item number 7, updates, there are none. So that takes us to item number 8, reports. 8.1, we have a 6-month update from the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board. So welcome to the table. I'll pass to Chris first to open the space, and then we'll hand over to you, Neil, and the team.
Thank you. Yes, warm welcome to the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board. Today they'll be presenting their 6-monthly update and talking about the good progress that we've made over the last 6 months. I just wanted to note that we did have a question passed on just around the Economic Development Strategy refresh, which I just wanted to respond to before we hear the update. There was just a question about the term of the current strategy being 3 years and why we were looking to refresh the current strategy. I just wanted to note that the current terms of reference actually has set in it that at the 3-year mark we would refresh it. The reasoning behind that is because it is our first economic development strategy, and we wanted the opportunity to make sure that we had the settings right and an opportunity to come back with what we'd learnt and next steps. So there is an opportunity to think about whether it needs a longer term going forward, but I didn't want that to be something that we were concerned about during the session. So with that done, I'll hand over to Neil and the team.
So thank you, and tēnā koutou katoa from the EDKB, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to my report. And as you'd said, Chair, trust that the report has been read. What we really want to do here is just highlight some parts of that report and give you some sort of insight into. You've talked about the refresh strategy. We'll give you some insights into our thinking, and Hilmarie will talk to that a little bit later on. So I'm going to start off with food and beverage, give you an update on that, on tourism, on the tech clusters, and Russell will update you on the Education and Training Hub. He's jet fresh back from a trip to Europe, which took around 6 weeks, and he doesn't want to do long division just yet. There's a bit of jet lag there, I think, but notwithstanding that, so he'll cover that. Kim will speak to the regenerative horticulture, and Hilmarie will, as I say, she'll talk to our approach to the strategy refresh. So food and beverage, just to start off with that, it's 9.3% of our GDP, and really good headroom for growth. Made some excellent progress and we're well into implementing the collaborative program. A good example of that has been just the joint displays at the New Zealand Fine Food in Auckland. I think we had 9 businesses there, and the largest regional presence of anyone. So really starting to move out of our district and to bring people into our district. Businesses are expanding. There are new facilities in Paraparaumu and Otaki to accommodate growth in the markets of 2 or 3 companies. And we're in the process of refreshing and agreeing on the 12-month program going forward, where there's going to be further activities, including events at the Sheffield Street precinct cluster, which is one of 3 precinct clusters. We need to get a funding vehicle in place to complete applications to the SFFF, which is the Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund, into MPI and into Kānoa, just to progress fit out of premises, equipment, and generally just to assist businesses to grow. So the cluster is developing really well. Obviously, clusters are about increasing productivity, about increasing innovation and providing more customers, and that's what a number of the businesses are starting to get a feel for and starting to get some benefit from. But also in the larger sort of context and a more mature cluster, basically they collaborate together to actually tender for work as a virtual company. So a cluster can be effectively a large company. So that's all moving well, and that's probably the cluster that has progressed the most. Tourism is our second one, which is only at 4% GDP, but again, a lot of headroom for growth. We've really had a successful summer marketing campaign, very good interaction with the industry through a number of sector events, and major events has come back strongly from 2022, which was impacted by COVID. Wellington, New Zealand is the regional tourism organisation, and currently we're working with them to finalise a website which will have traffic of around about 1.7 million, but we really need better support from Wellington, New Zealand. We're not getting that in promoting capacity, training and support, and in product development. So we need to put our minds and collective minds to how we can do better with Wellington, New Zealand, or look at what other alternatives there could be. We've made some adjustment also to the resourcing to support to the Tourism Advisory Board, and then transitioning really from an advisory board to a leadership board, so that we can better utilise the skills that sit within the TAB and allow them to make more impact, I guess, in terms of what we're doing in that area. Look, thanks to the council for what you've done in kickstarting the development of the Kapiti Story. Those funds will be well utilised, and Kapiti Story is not only about tourism, it's also about becoming part of a value proposition that will attract investment and other businesses into our area. So that's Kapiti Story is one of the planks, one of the strategic priorities that we're focusing on. So too is building effective and collaborative leadership, and also we're looking at product and market development. Our quality and standard of product here at the moment is not where it could be and should be, and a lot of effort has to go into lifting that and making that stand apart from others who we're competing with. Look, and finally with tech, that's a really, it's early formative stages. There's a fantastic talent pool in our district, and it's a matter of and they're working really together to look at opportunities and to grow and develop a cluster which can then link to other sectors such as health. So we're developing a wider network of practitioners and a program of events around common needs, and that will provide us, if you like, with the raw material to start developing and shaping the sector. And alongside this, we are designing a startup ecosystem and entrepreneur roadmap that is connected to existing local, regional and national activity. And to start that off, we're working with The Factory, which is an organisation that's based in Manawatu. They have developed startup ecosystems in Taranaki, in Hawke's Bay, in Whanganui and also in the Manawatu. They bring with them a lot of IP and connections and relationships with the likes of Callaghan and others. So they will give us a good kickstart, if you like, to our startup. And they'll be working closely with KIDA to train them up and to effectively let them take over the delivery of a number of programs. And eventually KIDA becomes a standalone unit and the only provider in that space. So that's the journey, but we need to get that moving first of all. So around all of this, we need business attraction and investment. And that plays such an important part in enabling and growing clusters. And we're working with the Edmund Hillary Foundation Fellows and others, for example, NZTE, and that's focusing on opportunities not just around the three sector areas, clusters, but also, it's not limited to that, but also where we can see some other opportunities. So you find the gaps, and the opportunities, and you identify where the investment and where the new businesses can be brought in to make the clusters more robust. So that's the activity. That's where the clusters are at. EDKB business model, I've signalled in the report that fundamentally we're looking at some options. There's a piece of work that's underway right now, and we'll have a briefing with Council in August on that. So I'm not speaking to that at this stage. So that's it from me. I'm going to pass over to Russell, and he'll give you an update on the Education and Training Hub.
Good, Neil. Kia ora koutou. Good to see you all. This is a good news story, so I'll crack on. You'll hopefully be reminded as I'm talking of the work that's been completed to date, and that was the Vault feasibility study, which you will have all read, so phase 1, and that made some recommendations around a small pilot model using existing facilities before developing a large-scale model. So perhaps using facilities within the new discussed community centre as an example. And we've progressed to the next phase, or phases I should say, of the Education Hub, and we've been working with key stakeholders to determine what the initial pilot should look like. And before I talk about that, I actually meant to start with this. I wanted to just shout out to Mark and Monica and team, by the way, because this stuff's really easy to talk to. There's been a lot of hard work, energy and resources put into the information I'm sharing with you today. So thanks, team. It's great fun working with you. All right, so phase 2. So we've investigated what the gaps are within the education offering and the barriers to learners, and we found a good amount of education and training available, but there was a lack of awareness and accessibility for some of the communities. Also, a lack of connection between providers, students and employers. So of course that equals opportunity for us. Key recommendation was that the pilot hub should be a physical space that that also has an information portal that steps students, particularly rangatahi, through the pathways from education to employment. So moving now on to phase 3, it gets even more exciting now. We're doing further work with UCOL, or the UCOL part of Te Pukenga, around piloting a hub in Paraparamu in carpentry and automotive courses for college-age students, starting with Kapiti College and then including the other colleges. A 3-bedroom house is going to be built on Kapiti College grounds, working with 13 students, and a shipping container of equipment is located on that site. When we find another suitable location, UCOL will provide automotive engineering courses and again provide all equipment. They just need a building space or building and or space to provide those services. UCOL do not need funding for these initiatives, just our support finding the right building and to facilitate the way forward. Mark Aldershaw is supporting this as Regional Director at Te Pukenga and sees what we're doing as a national pilot. So it's got some interest across the country and we're interested in that as well. Te Pukenga are very happy to have PTEs or private training entities join this pilot hub alongside their programs. So as you've heard, there's quite a lot going on. The key barrier actually is physical space for these things to be given expression to, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you about that and might even be making requests about that in the not too distant future. Kia ora.
Tim, would you like to, do you need this in front of you? Cheers.
Kia ora team, got my other hat on today. So just a quick update on Regen. So it's been a slow process, but what we've been doing behind the scenes is just building those relationships with our Māori landowners and just finding the capacity and the experience we need to carry out the scope of work, which will culminate in putting an application to MPI so that we can further the project. So during our journey, we've been working with the Otaki Porirua Trust Board, and they were in the conversation quite early. And just recently, I think over the last 12 months, they've been undergoing a land use project where they've got a team that's investigating what can be done with their lands, which are plentiful and are art-based. So they belong to Ati Awatua and Raukawa combined. And so they're getting out of agriculture and looking to find out what they can do with their land. So they have quite a substantial land holding. And that's not even taken into account all the other Māori land holdings and even the untapped land holdings that are a result of the treaty claims that have been land banked. So there's quite a lot of resource there. It's just a matter of getting together and finding out what we're going to do with it. And so we're lucky enough to have part of our team, our Hapu team, actually involved in that Otaki Porirua Trust Board land use project. It hasn't been completed yet, so we haven't got the results of it. But we've been talking to them in terms of coming on and supporting Aroha Spinks, who sits with Ngā Hapu at the moment, into this regenerative project because the two align very well. So they're looking at what they want to do with that land, and we're looking for land to use. So, it goes hand in hand. So they've got we've got our manager of our environmental team, and a couple of others that whakapapa to Ngā Hapu. And so we've had to talk to them, and they're very keen to do the two together and see what outcomes we can achieve together. So that's great. We're just working out what that looks like practically on the ground. We still have Dr. Aroha Spinks, who already has a relationship with MPI, so she's already been working with them on a regen agriculture project. So her proposal to MPI was received very well, in particular around the cultural values attached to the project and the marketing strategy. So I can't remember which university she's working with currently, but there's a team of that. So that's a separate project, but the skills and the relationships she's got will transfer perfectly into the Regen Hort. So that's a bonus. So with her experience with MPI and her relationship, plus with the experience of our team working on the land use project, we've got a good little team forming. And so we're just working through the logistics of that. And hopefully we'll have something more concrete in the next couple of months. And so we continue to build the relationships with Māori landowners, connecting them with MPI. These are probably might be smaller lots and smaller operations, but just building that relationship and getting them used to how that all works. So we'll continue to do that, but probably over the next 6 months our focus will turn to the application to the MPI and that larger commercial scale project. Yeah, and that's all from me. Kia ora.
Lucky last. Kia ora koutou. Our focus has been, we as a board have been together for 3 years, and I think everyone in this room can agree that the world has changed significantly in the last 3 years. So for us, looking at our strategy and business plan going forward, we do think that we have to consider specific things that is happening in our world. And I want to start with what are the big issues that we actually considered when we refocused our strategy. And for us as a board, there's 10 big issues that we think influence the region and influence our strategy. Some of them are positive and some of them are not so positive. So the first one is the opening of the transmission gully. That has a significant impact on our region at many, many levels. Following on from that is our booming population. But our booming population is underpinned by an aging population, by young people buggering off, and by migration. But when we look at our migration, migrants coming into our region are on average much older retirees from Europe. We have an ongoing housing shortage. Positive around the town centre developments coming into the town centre, it is buzzing. We, however, have no big companies. Normally within any economic development strategy, you have agglomeration, and agglomeration happens around big companies, which we as a region do not have. And we are also facing significant climate change pressures that needs to be considered in every decision we make. We also have a very strong collective iwi and a growing Māori economy. And within that growing Māori economy, it's not only the asset base, but also Māori people. We still have quite a significant skills mismatch, and that is also linked to the type of businesses, and that a significant proportion of our businesses are actually SMEs. Tourism revitalisation has been slow, and we do have a lack of the right accommodation that Neil alluded to. And the last one is our tech sector opportunities are definitely bubbling and are a significant opportunity. So all of these big issues is underpinned by the data in the region, so it's not something we made up. But what don't we have in Kapiti? And for us, I think one of the first things is we do not have a decisive comparative advantage. And we still have to build on that. And linked to that is we don't have a very strong sense of a shared direction. I don't think we all agree on what success would look like in 50 years from now. What do we as a board have? We have a limited budget, of course we'll say that. We have limited capacity. We have strong support, like Russell said, from the team, but it is limited capacity. We have a very dedicated and connected team doing as much as what we can. And in terms of our business model, Neil said we will come back later in the year to discuss how to do this better. So what is important to us? And I think I want to reiterate what Kate Rayworth says, that our 21st century challenge is to meet the needs of all of us within the means of our planet. I know the Council are using the donut economy principles to underpin your thinking. For us as a board, we do think we can play a leading role in ensuring the social foundations are met within our region. And for us, it is focusing on income and work, education and food. So what underpins this narrative for us is that we are absolutely convinced that economic mobility will lead to higher social cohesion. we see that within that, all the factors in that social foundation and the donut economy will be impacted if we get economic development right. So how will we do this? I think we will focus on creating opportunities in areas of severe deprivation. Some of the areas of severe deprivation in our region is in Otaki and Otaki Beach. But secondly, creating better quality jobs. As Kapiti is lagging behind in per capita income of Wellington, and we can say that is because of all the government officials, but actually our per capita is lagging behind New Zealand's average. So at least if we can get on par with the rest of New Zealand, that would be a great step. And thirdly, we have a growing and diverse businesses in Kapiti, and we need to build on this. We know there's no big businesses. The second best is then to build on clusters to be able to get to that cluster that will have an impact on the economy. So looking at these big issues and our narrative and what influences us, we have identified 3 areas of focus. Our first area is to have a resilient Kapiti Coast economy based on productive and innovative clusters that are environmentally sustainable and future focused. Why this focus? Because we have no big businesses. We have to build a decisive comparative advantage, and we need to grow our SMEs. So we will build on the work we have done so far. So the first is we will focus on cluster development, and the 3 clusters will be building on our current food and beverage cluster. The second is to ramp up the tourism cluster, and the third is to set up and give the tech cluster wings. As part of this, we will also be supporting startups through the program that Neil has focused on this morning, but we will also look at existing businesses to make sure that the businesses that are not in the clusters don't fall through the gaps. The last area is the Māori economy. We want to focus on having an iwi-led economic development plan. We will focus on working with the 3 iwi and set up a plan, and currently we are exploring some options with MB through the fund which is called He Aka Katoro, which we do think will be quite a significant investment into looking at a focused iwi-led economic development plan. Our second area of focus is Kapiti Coast residents and communities benefit from local education and career opportunities. In this area, we want to continue with the work we have done in the last 3 years. The first is to continue with setting up the education hub sites. Secondly, supporting work-ready Kapiti and skills pathways to employment for rangatahi and in work-based mentoring initiatives. Also keep on creating opportunities and networks for our older working population because that is not going to go away. And also exploring some options for targeted population and talent attraction for domestic and international migrants. Our last area of focus is to make sure that Kapiti Coast is an inclusive community and are recognised as a great and easy place to invest and do business. How is we would like to support the council to make sure that property owners and developers can easily understand and navigate the council and council processes. So in summary, our focus will be on supporting sustainable business growth, creating good quality jobs, and making sure it is easy for businesses to do business in our region. Sure.
Well, that's it from us. So,
Well, please.
That was such a great summary, and there's been so much going on. I mean, we got that from the report, but just hearing it and hearing the different dimensions to the work and everything that sits behind that is seriously incredible. So just acknowledging all of you and the other members who have put in work to this point, and also the staff,
sure.
Just as the board has acknowledged for all of their support as well. So Chris has just mentioned to me that we will have kind of a briefing to unpack some of these things
Indeed.
more, and as you
Yep.
say, talk a little bit more about the strategy and the kind of ongoing relationship and the work that you're doing. We'll just questions specifically for the members
So
of
that
the
was to
board
give you
now.
some flavour, really,
Yeah,
where we've
yeah.
got our thinking to and what we're building from and to, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah,
Sure.
any questions specifically to that flavour would be great to hear. Yeah, Councillor Spires first.
Thank you. Kora Russell, thank you. So you're giving us the hurry up for the community centre so that the education hub can all be built together, which sounds really good. So what have you got a time frame in mind when you would like to see that completed by?
Thursday week. Sorry.
ASAP.
Look, just as soon as possible. And look, it is true that the community hub will be a significant physical enabler, and you're all aware of that.
Yes.
At the same time, there are other options, of course, because the needs are now. So that's the reason for my attempt at humour was because the needs are immediate.
Yeah.
And that's and indeed that's why it's so fabulous to see that we've already got some partnerships happening with colleges and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But the answer to your question is as soon as practicable. We understand the constraints with funding and political will and community engagement, those sorts of things, but it is urgent.
Yes, and I understand we need to look at the importance of that and how important it is actually for the local people.
We see it as a priority.
Yes, that's good. I just wanted to get that message across.
Yeah.
And just on another thing, it's just we have lack of accommodation in Kapiti. My son wants to run a big event here, bringing in about 300 people from all around the country for about 3 or 4 days, but there's nowhere for people to stay. So it's kind of like, what anything much happening in that space?
Well, there is a bit happening, and there's a hotel being built, for example, I believe.
Yeah.
But look, it's something that we're putting our minds to and trying to understand, and we haven't yet come up with an approach to that just yet.
No, I guess that comes back to the lack of space with buildings and things that we have in Kapiti, so that's a priority too, really, isn't
Indeed
it?
it
So,
is, yeah.
because we're wanting to grow our tourism and people coming into Kapiti, they need somewhere to stay.
It's also a reflection of the extraordinarily high amount of capital one needs to set up infrastructure for tourism, and the fact that we don't have a large market share of it. It's kind of build it and they will come. It's chicken egg. It's that whole thing. And the fact that one investor at least has committed to building a hotel, that's a good start. But your point is well made. We have an absolute lack of
It is an issue.
accommodation.
It's a big issue.
Yes, I think he's taking it over to Upper Hutt or something, so I thought Kapiti would be better, but
Yes, it would.
Thanks, Councillor Spires. Councillor Wilson.
I just note that they're saying that Kapiti doesn't have a decisive economic advantage. I would suggest that we do, but it's just largely untapped, and that's the arts and creative sector. And in your report, that appears to be missing, and the it historically hasn't formed part of an economic strategy. I would suggest that should be, this is a personal view, that should actually be the core of the strategy. If you look at the advantage that the Kapiti Coast does have, it's in the arts and creative sector. And I think that now allies quite closely with the tech sector. No, just this observation.
Can we save that for debate? Is that okay?
Oh, there's no debate. Yep.
Yeah. But if you did want to respond briefly to that,
It's certainly something that we would
comment?
support, but it's certainly something that we're not going to focus on in terms of our major energies.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Halliday.
He's on mute.
Oh, we can't seem to hear you particularly well. Have you got headphones plugged in that you're not using or something you could unplug? Oh, try that. Sorry, just say something, Martin, so we can see if we can hear you.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better, yeah.
Okay. Look, fantastic report back, guys. Thank you very much. Pretty much all answered all the questions I had. I think this is fantastic what you guys are doing, and thank you very much for all the effort that's gone in, which is, I'm sure, way above and beyond what you're being remunerated for. But fantastic things going on in our community, and great to see this after landing an economic development strategy not really that long ago, that we're going gangbusters on all sorts of fronts. I actually had two questions, but they're more housekeeping. To be honest, they're not really questions to the board as such. The first one revolves around number 20 on the report. Talks to the any change or additions to the board itself needs to be confirmed by the chair of the Strategy and Ops committee. I was wondering whether that should perhaps be the chair and deputy chair. They can just be taken aside for thought.
Yep, cool. That's been noted. Thanks, Councillor Holiday.
And the only other thing is in regards to the aged approach. I note that you have 65 really as the pivot point. I do wonder if that needs to be perhaps lowered down to 55 as a target group. We have a lot of people that are going through the processes of being made redundant or working from home or all sorts of scenarios. But really at 65 is we really could look at time that could just be taken into consideration as well. Otherwise, everything I've got, I'll just add in on debate.
Cool. Thanks, Councillor Holiday.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Community Board Member Simon Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your report today. Absolutely brilliant. Love the direction you're heading. A question that I have is, we're still using GDP as an economic indicator. Just wondering, are there any other more sustainable indicators we could use in future? Are we looking at using them? Things like, I just used ChatGPT talking about human index indicator, sustainable development goals, wealth inclusive indicator, happiness indicator. And I was just wondering if there's any research in that area we could do.
Yeah, definitely. I think the council, you have shifted towards looking at using the donut economy. So within that, you have the social foundation that has significant indicators. That's part of the living standards framework.
Right.
So in those, we will have quite a few human, social and cultural indicators that will collectively make up. GDP will be one, but it will definitely not be the only one. And on the outside of the donut is looking at our ecological footprint. So we will definitely have some of the climate change indicators that is part of working towards 2050 and those indicators.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Good question and good to hear. Thank you. Mayor Holbrook.
Hi, thank you so much for the incredible work that's happening. It's actually what the report shows is making a tangible difference to our economy here on the coast. I just wanted to follow up on Nigel Wilson's line of commentary. And I'm referring to page 11 of the report, the Kapiti Coast Economic Development Strategy Strategic Framework. So my first question is that what's being revised as part of the refreshment of the economic development strategy? That's the first question.
I'm not sure. Could you just say that again, please? Me?
So is the plan to revise those pillars, the aims and the actions?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So I do note that in the second column along, one of the main actions is support the development and delivery of a Kapiti Creative Industries plan. I'll just come to my question. So we are doing a culture and creativity strategy for the district.
Yep.
Is that something that would replace that, and the industries plan could kind of be embedded into that and you would feed into it? Or would you still see them as two separate pieces of work? Or based on your comment before, are you abandoning that piece of work?
No, we're not abandoning it at all. We're certainly supporting it. What we're saying is that that's not our primary focus. So there is, I understand, a strategy that's been developed as we speak.
Yeah, so...
A creative...
Yeah. Yes, there is. Yes.
So certainly we understand that and we will support that, but we won't focus all of our energies on that.
So we could see that being removed from the strategic framework in the next iteration, or will it still be there?
It will still be there as something that we will support.
Great. I would, I'll wait for debate and I'll make a comment on that.
That's so. This is the start of that debate, isn't it? So that's our views, and I think we then go along and we'll do some workshopping and we'll talk about just what it looks like. But certainly, it's a starter. It's not a finish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did hear a comment too that there's no vision for the future out, past the next wee while. So how is the Kotahitanga Board's work in terms of developing the economic development strategy going to align with the council's visions and priorities, or do you see it as something completely separate?
Not at all. We don't see it as separate at all. We see the opportunity to bring this view to the council, to workshop it through and to align it so that we're one. What we've had previously, the problem that we've had previously, is we didn't know what to align to. We were given a 3-year strategy and we didn't see how it fitted into the overall structure. What we're looking at this time is saying, well, here's our view, let us in and let's discuss this and let's align it for sure.
Yeah, it's because it's two-way. It's about the new economic development strategy aligning to the vision, but it's also about feeding back into that vision so it aligns to
Indeed it is.
to what
Yes,
the
it
group is doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
And I really appreciated the opportunity that Neil and I had to kōrero about our A3 strategic priorities that we came up with as councillors, and Neil kind of went, okay, here's where something that we're doing really fits in and aligns, and here's where, so that I feel like that ongoing conversation will be quite useful.
Indeed.
Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that to say that, as you'd expect, we're working with Neil and the team, and we did mention doing some workshopping. Those workshops are going to feed into the Vision Kapiti work, but we're going to talk about that with you. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we have been talking about our hubs that we're setting up, and one of those hubs is going to be on economic development. So you here will be talking to Neil and team, and then and our hub will be Magic. That will be engaging our community on. And I say that way because I don't want to get too ahead of the conversation. You've planted some seeds today, and the idea is there'll be an opportunity for more discussion. So I think that's important to note.
Yeah, thanks for noting that. All right, last question. Community Board Member Bernie Randall.
Yeah, thank you. My question relates to paragraph 16 about tourism expenditure. Now, you say it's increased by 8.5%. Is there a reason why it increased? Is there something specific activities that have taken place? And where are these? Where did you obtain this figure to say that the expenditure was approximately $115 million?
I don't have that piece of paper in front
I
of
think
me.
Mark will answer that one. Bernie, if you could just turn your microphone. Oh yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for your question, through you, Chair. So the figures come from Infometrics. So those figures are produced, and so we've got a quarterly update for the last 12 months up to the end of March, and that includes a number of sectors, including visitor spend. So the visitor spend has gone up 8.5%, and that's up to 115, which is one of the highest spends the company's had for quite a while. And to your first part of your question around why the increase, it's a combination of things. Domestic tourism has really picked up across New Zealand, so we're seeing the rise across New Zealand. In addition, that quarter that we were reporting on was the culmination of all our major events that the council invests in. And the major events, 50% of attendances at these major events are from outside the district. So that flows into consumer spend, which is picked up through this visitor spend category. So that's one of the contributors, the major events that the council invests in. And of course, it was the end of a very nice long summer, which was unique to Kapiti. So it helped.
Thanks, Bernie. All right, last question, Councillor Coфord.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, thanks for that. Hey, great report, thank you. Just a couple of questions. One is your reference to tourism on the Kapiti Coast. you'll appreciate that we've closed down most of the motor camps. In fact, all of the motor camps on the Kapiti Coast except for Pakokariki. Would you find a significant increase in spending if we opened up an area such as the Old Taki Gorge Road and Forks area, which is a new initiative we're looking at? And also, with the government's managed recession, there's a significant amount of less discretionary spending that people have, so that's impacted on local small businesses. Have you noticed a dramatic decrease in business or businesses closing down in the last 6 months?
So to your first point, the Tourism Advisory Board is looking at that and looking at camper vans and other options. So those things are being looked at, but at this stage it's kind of work in progress. Your last question, sorry, was on?
Oh, just the recession that we're experiencing. Have you noticed that an impact on small businesses? Because you continued references to small businesses on the coast here, not major ones. Has that impacted, pretty greatly or not?
Mark, I'd need to go back to you on that because you've got some stats.
Okay, thank you.
Can you answer that as well?
Do you want to answer? So in terms of the camper vans, the research also showed that people in camper vans spend less dollars than tourists staying in motels and hotels. So there is also that balance in terms of tourism spend. In terms of businesses, we are a nation of SMEs, so births and deaths are always very high. And it doesn't matter if it's a recession or if it's not. So currently, credit card spend is actually up. So that means that we are actually, we as consumers are not that worried. I think the government's more worried than us. So credit card spend is up, and births and deaths will always be a churn. It doesn't matter what, if we are in recession or not. But Kapiti has seen an increase in businesses. So overall opening of businesses has been higher than the deaths, or I don't know what's the word, but we call it births and deaths.
It works for me.
Closure, yeah.
Closure.
It doesn't mean proprietary.
No, it doesn't. Not talking mortality.
Did that answer your question? Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. Awesome. So we've got 2 recommendations on page 6 of our agenda to note or to receive, firstly, the 6 monthly update from the EDKB Independent Chair, and also to note the progress made in the implementation of the Economic Development Strategy and Implementation Plan, and also approving the extension of contracts for the current members of the EDKB to the 30th of June 2024. So I'm aware that Councillor Halliday on Zoom would like to move these recommendations. Is that correct? He's popped something in the chat. Yeah, cool. All right. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Coford. Cool. Thank you. Councillor Halliday, right of introduction.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me fine there?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is absolutely fantastic. From where we were when I was first elected to where we are now. We've landed an economic development strategy. It has an independent board, and we have an economic development department. We are basically moving from ground zero at the moment, and I do take into consideration what you're saying, Kathy, and others have said as well. But we've only just started. We've only just started this journey, and look how far we've come already. And that's thank you to the 4 people sitting down the end of the table there, the economic development team sitting next door to you, Sophie, and just a general can-do attitude that's being empowered. And I just want to thank the EDK board so much for where we are at the moment. For me, tourism development, and I do acknowledge what Nigel was talking to, and then the creative side of things as well. We're just getting the ball rolling in that space, and from what I'm seeing, the board's really been getting a handle on what are the nuts and bolts requirements for our district, and putting some very good things in place there with regards to education, business support, etc., and also getting a very clear understanding that can be documented around what the what our ecosystems look like, if you like. And Kim, fantastic hearing the mighty economy as well, starting to move along there as well. And it's great to have some structure all around this so that we can measure it and we can work forward and we can develop funding pathways. That's the next exciting part of all this, I dare say, and we're going to be talking about that soon. That's going to be around what the next stage of the board is. What does it evolve to? That was always the intent, that the EDKB board, that this is the first iteration of that. And I'm very, very much looking forward to how that conversation evolves as well. Russell, thank you very much for the work in that education space, which is an area that we've been sorely lacking in, but thank you very much for bringing that together the way that you have. For me, in that tourism space, I'm going to do a bit of a shout out for Whale Song. I see that as being a transformational tourism anchor for our district, centralised in Parapara Umu, and looking forward to seeing how that can be incorporated into the general kaupapa here as we develop the tourism conversation as well. Primary producers are rocking along nicely. Looking forward to the tourism conversation. Thank you very much. And that's it from me.
Cool, thanks Martin. We whipped everywhere in that right of introduction, thank you. Mayor Holbrook.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to note that Liz Coe's sent her apologies today, but expressed how disappointed she was that she had a clash and couldn't be here today, as this work is so important to her as the council representative, and I note that she's been acknowledged in the report as well today. So, I'd like to thank you for the work that you've done so far, and for being willing to continue. And it's my pleasure to support that second recommendation in that regard today. I do note there's a vacancy, I think, on the board, so there is the opportunity for some fresh input there as well, which I think is a really positive thing. And maybe somebody from the creative industries might be good to go in there, rather than saying any more on that right now. So I do note that that's an important pillar for us in our vision, and it's also an important existing pillar in the economic development strategy. I realise we can't do everything at once, but as we develop our creative and culture strategy, there's a real opportunity there for us to not just see it as a nice to have, but an essential element in our local economy, and an essential element in the well-being of our community, our mental well-being, our economic well-being, our cultural well-being. And I just really encourage the board to think about that as you refresh the economic development strategy. We've also got a facility that we have invested heavily in as a council in the new Mahara Gallery, and making the most of that as a destination, as a hub, as a centre for our arts. I'll also note that we have allocated funding to tell the Te Urahi story throughout the district, and I'd quite like to see how that can be embedded into the work of the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board. So we all know that the creative industries are a little bit of a pet for me, but putting it mildly. So no apologies for pushing that a little bit today. But thank you for the work that you do in every other area as well. I do really acknowledge that, particularly that really exciting vision in the education space, and all the other work that's going on, housing and Otaki, and all the other work that's going on. But yeah, really encourage that for the board to consider that as they the creative industries as they progress through this next phase of the work as we refresh our economic development strategy. So thank you very much for your work.
Kia ora Madam Mayor. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up with that. I think there's there's an opportunity to give effect to that. I'll go back to my earlier point that the decisive advantage that we have in Kapiti is our arts and creative sector, which I think allies quite well with where the tech sector is going and moving into that space. IT is going to be is huge. And AI is even bigger still. Kapiti's been quite notable for the the leadership role that it's taken in a lot of those spaces over the years. So I think there's a fantastic opportunity. I note that 25% of the board appointments haven't been filled. So one independent member, there's a vacancy. That might be an arts and creative sector person. You might want to be thinking about that. I'm not quite sure how these vacancies get filled. Just to reiterate, I take Martin's point when he talked about whale song. I think that provides a fantastic opportunity as well. One of the biggest problems we have, of course, and this has already been addressed, and that is, do we go for day tourism, where people come here, enjoy whatever it is we have to offer, and then go away again, or do we just face the reality that most of the motels in Kapiti are largely filled with emergency housing and have been for a long time? So part of the problem that we have, and Kathy pointed this out, and I'm aware of that situation where we had an opportunity to have something really significant here, but it couldn't happen because there's nowhere for people to stay, which might be good news for Levin or Porirua, if we could get people to stay there and then bust them in and out. But it just shows there's a massive gap. And I would assume that whatever strategy we have has to deal with that reality as well. But again, just to emphasise, Kapiti is the arts and creative sector of the region, if not the country, and possibly the world. So let's build on that. That is a really decisive advantage. So let's build on it. Let's claim it for what it is. It's fantastic. And we just need to build and everything around that. And if we're looking for a point of difference between us and the rest of the world, then that's it.
I can see it now, a big sign at the entrance to Kapiti that's just like the culture and creative centre of the universe. Yeah, world or universe. Okay, no other contributions to debate. I just wanted to commend you for the work incorporating the donut economics model and the conversation that you've shared with us, but also the work that's sitting behind all of the different projects and work streams centred on climate action and environmental restoration and enhancement. I'm really hearing that coming through more loudly than it ever has. So I really do appreciate that, because it's one of our top 3 priorities as a council that we've identified in our strategic prioritisation we've gone through so far collectively, and it'll come through extremely strongly through our Vision 2060 work. So it's really awesome to hear that so loud and clear. So thanks. And also an acknowledgement from the rangatahi who are engaged in numerous different spaces, whether it be through KYS or Work Ready or through the Youth Council, understanding the work that you're doing in the training and education space, and the opportunities that it will provide for them is really exciting. So look forward to hearing that story told more as we get further along the process, because I think it'll give just that little bit of hope that maybe some of them feel like they can't find around here because there aren't those opportunities, and that leads to them moving elsewhere, and us not having the pleasure of having that diversity of age within our population to the extent we could. So acknowledging that. So our recommendations have been moved by Councillor Halliday, seconded Councillor Coford. Councillor Halliday, right of reply? I feel like you've covered. Yeah, you've waived it?
I would like to say.
Oh, you'd like to say something? All right, could we keep it quite brief if that's okay?
It will be very brief.
Cool, thank you.
What a reply. First thing is always noted, I'm very strong on the day visit side of things with tourism. Number 2, I think there's been a clear flag towards some work in the giving air to the creative spaces and support in that space as well. Another housekeeping thing I just wanted to point out on our delegations, Liz is not actually listed as the representative for the EDKB from a council perspective. Might need to be added on to that, and I'd like to put myself forward potentially as a second for that position. Would be much appreciated. And last but not least, thank you, Neil. Thank you for all the work that you've done in chairing this committee, and chairing this and bringing this all together. It's been a road that I've been with you on from the very beginning, and I've appreciated that you've appreciated the journey. I've appreciated the conversations we've had, and I've appreciated that you've kept all these things on track and we're achieving the things that we talked about right in the beginning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Just to confirm, if you look under point 17, board appointments, Council ex officio representative Liz Coe is named there. So thanks for raising it though. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Martin.
Yeah, I appreciate it's in that document. It's not actually in our delegations document on the website.
Okay, I've been assured that
It's just a housekeeping thing. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay, thanks, Martin. We'll triple check that. Cool. All right. So that's moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you so much, team. Enjoy the rest of your day, and have a good matariki. Happy matariki. Yeah. All right. Cool, and welcome Leslie to the table, and Hamish too. Yeah, true. Just going, the conversation was good. I thought. All right. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Hamish. We'll just let you get seated. All right, team. So moving on to item 8.2, Council Policy Work Programme 21-24 Progress Update. So we'll pass over to Leslie and Hamish, noting too that if we could take the report as read, that would be great. Thanks, Leslie.
So this is the first update we've given to this new council since the election. So just as a reminder that the Policy Work Programme it prioritises our policy and strategy projects over a 3-year period. We're a good chunk of the way through that now. So in this progress update, there are things to note, some changes, a couple of items that are redundant, and 5 additions, things that we've identified as priorities.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Surely someone's, I think I did have one. I'll just, and this might be more of a question maybe for Chris. So just in terms of the naming of the different strategies, the new ones, so we've got here, and deleting strategies, the wellbeing strategy, which will be incorporated into Vision Kapiti work. I guess from my end, I'm wondering whether we could potentially create a bit of a pathway to just show how all of the work that's already gone into shaping the wellbeing strategy, and then also the major event strategy, which is currently existing, will be folded into the economic development strategy and the like. So we're not missing anything.
Yeah, thank you. I guess this is a great moment for me to share that I have mentioned to you that we'll be tabling a new strategic architecture. And part of bringing that strategic architecture to the table will be actually working through some of the shifts. And to those listening, what I'm talking about is a really simple structure in the way that we show how the links between Vision Kapiti and the blueprint that we're developing link down to our approaches. And I think councillors are aware that we're working with the age-friendly reference group, and we'll be coming back to talk about where they fit or see themselves fitting in that architecture next month. And our operating strategies, and then the plans that deliver against that. So as we do that, we'll definitely show the shift and change, including how things like the wellbeing strategy are linking up to Vision Kapiti, and also how the major event strategy is actually being is embraced into what will be the refreshed economic development strategy that you will consider. So we aren't losing those things, we're just pushing them through in a slightly different way.
Awesome. That was exactly what I was hoping you'd cover off too, so that's great. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you for this, and thanks for that, Chris. That was actually my question. Which I just found it interesting that you're folding the major event strategy into the ED strategy. But where did I just hear that we're really going to be talking about that, how that all works over the coming month as part of that architecture around all that? Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Community Board Member Simon Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is around, I see that because of the water reforms coming, that a lot of our water strategies are on hold. I'm concerned that there is climate change, a lot of rain, water level rising, water tables rising. Particularly know that a lot of the sumps in Otaki, of the drains, are sump driven. They're not actually plumbed, and they don't seem to be coping as well as they used to. Are we putting those strategies on hold, or are we still progressing the necessity of having these strategies for us locally?
I'll pass this over to Chris, but I can definitely say
If I just might say, the refresh of a strategy won't stop us in our implementation work.
Yeah.
So Sean Mellon will still be progressing with his team our usual maintenance program, which is set through the LTP. So those strategies do link to that, but we've already got the plan in place for this year, and we'll be coming back to talk to you about the focus in the LTP. So we're still required to have our infrastructure strategy through there, so there will be no loss. I think what we would have done is, as part of our usual refresh, is looking at some of the higher order parts of the strategy, of whether we've got the right focus in it. But given that there is change, we're saying now's not the right time to do that. We're going to continue with what we're doing now until there's more clarity around that shift, basically. Also, just to note that we've been having a lot of conversations about a district plan, and you know that there's changes coming through focused on coastal erosion and adaptation through Te Kutai Kapiti, which and then that links through to a district plan change. And also we do have flood risk mapping underway, and we do have an existing district plan flood risk mapping in place now. So it's not that we're losing focus on it. We're definitely focused on it. It's just we don't want to do work that will be lost through the transition process. So it'll be more about engaging with the new entities to make sure they've got the right priorities as they stand up their focus. And I think I'm looking at Darren because Sean's not here. In due course, we will be talking to you about that transition and the focus that we're proposing we'll have. Did you want to make any comment on that, Darren?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Simon. So obviously there's legislation that is looking to move through the House to enable the transition to the 10 entities. So we are eagerly awaiting what that looks like. So the fact that we are putting some strategies on hold, to Chris's comments, doesn't change the implementation that's driven through that long-term plan. So we've got about $250 million of projected work over the next 10 years in capital works. Part of the process of transition has seen us over the last 12 months developing asset management plans that will assist the new entity, which, as we're all now aware, is shifting from 4 mega entities to 10 more regionalised based entities. So those asset management plans will drive the prioritisation of work for us here. What that looks like in reality is yet to be worked out. So, but there's an opportunity for us to have those really courageous discussions with the new entity as it's being formed. But for now, work will continue through the long-term plan.
Thanks, Simon. Good question. Councillor Spies.
Thank you. This is just for clarification around the new strategic architecture. Does this mean that strategies and outcomes are going to become approaches and focuses?
That's a great question, Kathy. I think what's going to happen is we're going to look at what we have in place now and where they fit in that structure. So some things that we currently call strategy will get lifted up to being approaches. Some things that we call strategies will stay as strategies. and some things that are strategies are actually plans. So what we're trying to do is get some consistency on where things fit and how they connect together. So one of the reasons we're looking at the strategic architecture as a priority is if you haven't been involved in the development of the strategies at council, when you look at what we have online, it's really hard to get a sense of hierarchy and what is driving our focus. So what's more important? Is it this or that? And in a lot of the work we have, it's not clear. And so that strategic architecture will start to help people see how things connect together and the alignment between those things. So there'll be more work around that. But what I can promise you is we will be applying a consistent methodology behind that. We will be having conversation about it. We are actually, through the LTP, going to make sure that we talk to the community about it. So it's not something that we're doing in the background and something will pop out. It's going to be something that we explain and invite people to get engaged in if they want to. So I know that for some people they actually do and it's important to them. So we'll look forward to that conversation. And for some people, they won't be interested in all, and that is fine too.
Right. So is Iwi going to be sitting alongside as you go through this process?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Councillor Spies. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, a couple of things. I take Darren's point about courageous discussions. It's usually something that politicians want to run away from. The idea of being courageous usually means a bit of a trap. Yeah, given that Three Waters is going to be a massive game changer, however that comes down, and will impact on all of this, presumably that's just, we wait till that tidal wave arrives and then have a look at how it fits with all of these things. I'm looking forward to the day when the infusion of an arts and creativity policy finds its way into everything, just as much as with all of the, pretty much with every strategy that we have now, one of the considerations is climate change. It's just part of your thinking. You just don't do it without thinking about, how does climate change fit into that? So I'd like to see the same thing happen with arts and creativity in every possible aspect. So that's that'll dream come true one day. I just would note on the local alcohol policy that we're delaying that until the health strategy. The health strategy is due for completion around June of next year, June of 24. If the government legislation comes down earlier than that, which it presumably will, it's looking like about August or September of this year, then I presume that's an opportunity for us to revisit that a bit earlier, if we think that that's appropriate to do.
If I may. I think 2 points. The comment around the creative policy. As we come into the LTP, we'll of course be inviting a conversation about what the priorities are for the policy work program into the next triennium. So that can include adding more things and prioritising, because of course we'll be looking to make the most of the resource we have and to make sure we understand the impact of adding more to what is already a busy program. 2, absolutely. So what we want to do with our health strategy and the local alcohol plan or policy is to actually look and make sure that we're focused on all the levers that we have in that space. I think the local alcohol policy that we've been looking at, I think as you will know, it's actually got a really narrow focus. And I think through the discussion we've previously had on it, we've recognised that you want a bigger conversation about how do we make sure the right levers are being pulled in our community to actually ensure that we focus on the right things to support safety in our community. So that's why we're lining it up with health strategy. We don't have to wait to June 24. So I just want to be clear. We are going to be coming through with work on the health strategy far earlier than that. And our hope is that as the timeframes are kind of running alongside the climate change and resilience and environment strategy, that we want to be talking to you before the end of the year around those things, because we want to be able to have a talk with the community as part of the long-term plan about your thoughts and where that might be landing. Otherwise, it will be too late. So we really want to get on with both of those things.
Great, thank you. I just have one other question about the accessibility strategy and leaving the beginning of the work in that space until January 24. Is there a reason why that, is it capacity that wouldn't be put down earlier than that?
Our thinking is around the health strategy and what it might encompass.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we're lining up some of this work. I would say politely, with some of the things that we've had on our radar, they're missing the piece at the top to connect them in. So accessibility is a priority, of course, and we need to make sure that, again, we've got the right levers that we're pulling and we're clear about how it's fitting in with some of the broader things that are underway in the community, and some of the great work that's happening with the stand-up of our advocacy role and doing more in the health space. So we're wanting to make sure that we come back with a cohesive package for our community to go, this is what we think is most important, this is how we think it fits in, is that what you think as well? And it would be based off what your thoughts that are coming to the table. So it isn't a sign of less priority. It's completely the opposite.
Okay, awesome. Quick question.
Yeah,
Community
just a quick
Board, Simon
question.
Black.
It's an observation question as well. All these briefings we're having today, and also reading some of the paper, accessibility is huge. We're setting up all these programs, but we're not allowing our rangatahi, our community, to actually access these. Health to the north for Otaki. If we're setting up hubs and stuff for the youth here and education, how do we get our youth in Otaki to access them here? I think we've got to look at our transport strategy to make sure that we can access all of our initiatives equally.
I feel like, Simon, that's a great point. On the 25th of July, we have a session in Waikanai with our first hub for Vision Capity for you, and we wanted to show you the look at what will give you a chance to have a look at the feel of what would be rolling out at a district level, and invite your feedback on that, because we have been aiming to have high accessibility as a focus, making sure that a variety of groups can engage. And it's something that we would not only be holding in some hub areas, and by that I mean it's starting in Waikanai, partly because of space and availability. It's going to be coming to Otaki, Parapara Umu. We're actually going to be bringing it to Raumati and Paikokariki, and it's over time. Also, we won't be saying come to us only, we'll be saying we're going out. So around Rangatahi, we'll actually be working with you to go to schools or to make it accessible for our youth so that they can have their say. So I feel like some of this is quite interconnected, and we are deliberately trying to synthesise down our engagement so that we do it once and do it well, rather than sporadically or randomly going out and people being confused. So we're trying to use our Vision Capity as a portal to engage on a range of things, and through you as well, so that be it at a local level, through our community board engagement, or through the district level, we've got some commonality coming through. So that's the plan, the Mad Dash plan. I know it's a bit abstract, but I hope on the 25th, once you see something in play, you're going to go, hey guys, this is good, or give us feedback that we need to do a bit more.
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome, thanks Simon. Great. So we've got 2 recommendations on page 17. We've got recommendation A and B. Have someone who'd like to move them? Councillor Wilson, seconded. Mayor Holbrow, right of introduction? No. Any debate? Mayor Holbrow.
Not a debate, but it just doesn't need a response. contributing during debate, which is a legitimate thing to do, by the way, to wait until people move in second and then have a contribution.
Yeah, agree.
If you're actually giving an opinion on the piece of work. So, but it's not really an opinion, it's just a suggestion. We've had quite a lot of discussion about what's an approach, what's a strategy. We've also got bylaws, policies. Maybe we could have just a little, definition of them all so that we know what's even attached to the document. So we know which ones are subject to statutory timeframes, what makes a policy different from a strategy, what makes a strategy different from an approach,
Good
that
idea.
kind of thing. So that just might be useful. Yeah, but
The team's going to be bringing a paper on that, I'm aware.
Yeah, maybe we
Chris
need a
said.
strategy.
Yeah. A paper on the strategic architecture and
Or
adopting
a strategy approach.
Yeah,
maybe.
it's on its way. It's on its way.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a really good point around if you've got a contribution that you want to make, but it's not succinctly a question, and it's just a point that you want to make, just if you can leave that for debate, that's really useful, instead of asking a question to try and make a point. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. I have a similar comment. It relates to the table on page, I can't see, 22. There's a number of acronyms in there, and I think this page has probably been dropped in there, whereas it would be useful to have those acronyms described.
Did you want to
Thank
say
you.
something, Leslie? Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the main reference there is with regards to the AWR being the affordable water reform. So it is referenced under the stormwater bylaw and in the brackets, but if it's easy to have it kind of a bit more clearly at the start of the table going forward, we can do that. Yep, so sometimes they can be quite a few.
Yeah, thank you.
Good point, Jocelyn. Awesome. Oh, Community Board Member Bernie Randall.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'm making a contribution to debate. Is that allowed?
That's allowed,
Chair?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
In relationship to the age-friendly strategy, now, Councillor Halliday would be very much aware of it, but the discussion in that brought to mind that we should be going, and what Simon has just raised, we should be going out to Otaki and Waikanai and Paikop, particularly dealing with older persons matters. Everything seems to be central around Paraparaumu, and I think it's a good idea to think wider than just Paraparaumu.
That's a really good point, and it's almost like you've read all of the work that's been going on in the background to do just that. So yeah, really good point. Thanks for bringing it to the fore, Bernie. That's awesome. Cool. So we've got those recommendations moved and seconded. Before we do that, I just want to thank Leslie and Hamish for the massive amount of work that goes into kind of constantly and consistently reviewing this and bringing it back to us, and recognising it's your first time bringing it back to this new team of elected members. So yeah, we just really appreciate it, because there's obviously so much work that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see in this report that's in front of us today. So really want to acknowledge that. Cool. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Hamish. All right. So we're on to our last bulky item on our agenda. Yeah, cool. Do people want... Well, actually, yeah, let's take a break. Let's come back at 11:05, so they can the team can get settled, and you can grab a tea or coffee